You ever notice how small things start to stand out when something feels off? Like when a song on the radio keeps skipping a beat, or a door hinge creaks just a little too much every time it swings open. You don't think much of it first, but the more you notice, the harder it gets to ignore. That's how it started with Lisa and her damn chocolate bars. She was never a sweets person. That was the first red flag, the one I brushed off because hell, people change. One day they hate pineapple on pizza, the next they can't get enough of it. I figured maybe she picked up a new habit, some stress, craving, or late night indulgence. But when she started going out every night like clockwork, it stuck in my head like a bad itch. Every night, around 9:30, Lisa would grab her coat, fluff her hair in the hallway mirror, and say something casual. Just need a little something sweet before slipping out the door. Always the same store, always the same excuse. She'd come back 10, maybe 15 minutes later with a chocolate bar in hand, toss me one sometimes, and settle in on the couch like nothing was out of the ordinary. At first, I didn't care. I wasn't the type to hover over my wife's habits. But then I started paying attention. It wasn't just the chocolate. It was how she started dressing a little too nice for a grocery run. How she'd dab on a little lip gloss before leaving. How she checked her phone right before she went out, and again the second she stepped back inside. The more I watched, the more it started to eat at me. One night, I joked about it, half expecting her to laugh and say I was being ridiculous. "You never used to be this obsessed with chocolate," I said, tossing a wrapper in the trash. She grinned at me, licked a smudge of chocolate off her thumb. You know how I get sometimes. Except I didn't. Lisa had been my wife for years, and I knew her habits better than I knew my own. This wasn't her. This was something else. Something that made the hairs on my neck stand up, even though I had no proof, just a gut feeling I couldn't shake. So I decided to find out for myself. The next night, I let her leave like always. Watched from the window as she drove off, waited 30 seconds, then grabbed my keys and followed. The store wasn't far, just a 5-minute drive, a quiet little 24-hour market that mostly catered to late-night stragglers. I parked in a lot, far enough away that she wouldn't see me, and watched as she stepped inside. And then I saw him, a cashier, some scrawny guy with a messy uniform, the kind of forgettable face that blended into the background. He didn't look like much. Definitely not the kind of man I ever would have considered a threat. But as I watched through the glass doors, I realized she wasn't there to shop. She stood by the counter close, too close, leaning in slightly, tucking her hair behind her ear the way she did when she was flirting. They laughed together, hushed and familiar. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Then, right in front of me, they checked the store, glanced left, then right, making sure they were alone. And then it happened. His hands slid around her waist. She leaned in, tilting her head just so, their faces inches apart. And then they kissed. Not a friendly peck. Not a quick, guilty mistake. A real kiss. Lingering. Slow. The kind of kiss that tells you this has happened before and will happen again. The kind that makes your stomach drop and your blood boil all at once. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, fingers curling so hard I thought they might snap. My ears rang, my vision tunneled. Every instinct screamed at me to do something. Storm in, grab him by the collar, demand an explanation from her, from him, from the universe itself. But I didn't move. I just sat there, frozen, staring at something I never thought I'd see. Lisa, my wife, the woman I trusted, kissing some supermarket cashier like a lovesick teenager sneaking around behind my back. And suddenly, all the little things made sense. The chocolate bars, the perfectly timed trips, the way she'd come home looking refreshed, glowing, satisfied. I had been a damn fool, sitting in my own house while she ran off every night to play out her little fantasy with a guy who probably smelled like stale groceries and cheap aftershave. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel broken. I felt rage, red hot and sharp, curling through my chest, squeezing my lungs until every breath felt like fire. Lisa had been playing me, lying to my face, slipping out under the pretense of a craving, only to throw herself into another man's arms while I sat at home, none the wiser. But I knew now, and there was no coming back from this. I sat in my car, gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My breath came out in slow, controlled drags, the The kind of breaths you take when you're trying to stop yourself from doing something reckless. But the fire inside me burned hotter with every second I watched them. Lisa was still there, standing too damn close to him, her body leaning toward his like it was second nature. She laughed, tilted her head back slightly, eyes bright, lips curled into a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. That hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just a kiss. This wasn't some stupid, drunken mistake, some one-time lapse in judgment. That kind of smile, that comfort, that only happened when something had been going on for a while. A long while. My stomach twisted. I had spent years with this woman. Shared a home, shared a life. And here she was, looking at a damn supermarket cashier like he was the best thing to ever happen to her. A guy who probably spent his shifts punching prices into a register and bagging groceries. A guy who still had to wear a stupid little name tag on his chest. Him. The humiliation burned hotter than the rage. My wife had thrown away everything we built for him. And the worst part? I had been sitting at home like a fool every night, thinking she was just indulging in some stupid late-night snack craving. I clenched my jaw, grinding my teeth so hard I could hear it in my skull. I wanted to go inside. I wanted to storm through those glass doors, grab that bastard by his collar, and let him know exactly who the hell he was messing with. I wanted to watch the shock in Lisa's eyes when she realized she was caught. Watch her try to scramble for some pathetic excuse while she stood there, still close enough to him that I could see the heat between them. But I didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I forced myself to sit there, forced myself to watch. Because I needed to see. I needed to know exactly what kind of betrayal I was dealing with. Lisa turned slightly, resting her elbow on the counter like she had all the time in the world. Her phone sat in her hand, and I watched her flick through messages, probably sending some flirty text while the cashier leaned in to say something. She laughed again. My vision blurred. I had kissed those lips 1,000 times. I had held her in my arms, felt her melt against me the same way she was leaning into him now. How long? How long had this been going on? The question rattled in my skull like a war drum, but I already knew the answer. Too damn long. Then, just when I thought I couldn't take another second of this, something shifted. Lisa pulled back, glanced around the store, and grabbed a chocolate bar from the display beside the counter. It was automatic the way she did it, like it was part of the routine. A final piece of the puzzle before she walked out and played the innocent wife again. I could already see it, her coming home, tossing it onto the couch next to me with a little smirk. "Here, I got you one too," she'd say, like she hadn't just been shoving her tongue down another man's throat 10 minutes ago. The thought made my skin crawl. I had been eating the same chocolate bars she brought home after these little rendezvous. Sitting there, unwrapping them like some clueless idiot, letting her watch me consume the evidence of her betrayal without a second thought. Something snapped inside me. I shoved my car door open so hard it rattled on its hinges. My body moved before my mind caught up, rage carrying me across the parking lot in long, heavy strides. I was done watching. Lisa had no idea I was here. No idea I'd seen. And when I walked through those doors, when I faced her, I wanted to see the exact moment she realized her little game was over. She wanted to play this game? Fine. Let's see how she handled losing. The glass doors slid open with a faint chime, but to me, it sounded like a gunshot. Lisa stood at the counter, her back to me, fingers brushing against the cashier's wrist as he rang up her lone chocolate bar. She laughed at something he said, light, breathy, effortless. The kind of laugh that used to be mine. Not anymore. The sight of it sent a fresh wave of fire through my veins. My fists clenched at my sides, the muscles in my jaw flexing so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Every instinct screamed at me to grab her, to make her look at me, to tear her out of this little fantasy she'd built behind my back. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I stepped forward, slow and deliberate, letting my boots echo against the linoleum floor. I wanted her to feel it before she saw me. Lisa reached for her wallet, still oblivious, still comfortable. Then I spoke. That must be some damn good chocolate. She stiffened. It was instant, her whole body locking up like a marionette whose strings had just been yanked. I saw it in the slight twitch of her shoulders, the way her hand hesitated over the counter. The moment her brain caught up, piecing together that voice, that tone. Slowly, too slowly, she turned to face me. And there it was, the expression I'd been waiting for. Her eyes went wide first, lips parting, her breath catching in her throat like she'd swallowed something sharp. It was almost funny watching the realization dawn on her. She tried to recover, tried to mask it, but she was too late. I had already seen. Jack, she stammered, her voice higher than usual, hands tightening around the edge of the counter. What are you doing here? The nerve. I let out a low chuckle, shaking my head as I took another step forward, closing the distance between us. You tell me, Lisa, I said, my voice even, almost calm. What exactly are you doing here? Or should I say, who? Her throat bobbed. For a split second, I saw it. The flicker of panic behind her eyes, the desperate scramble for an excuse. She could feel it slipping, her perfectly crafted lie falling apart in real time. She started, but I was already looking past her. Straight at him, the cashier, the boy, because now that I was up close, I could really see him. And Christ, he was even more pathetic than I thought. Up close, he looked like a damn kid. Couldn't have been more than mid-20s, barely old enough to drink, with shaggy brown hair and acne scars along his jaw. He wasn't anything. No presence, no confidence, nothing that explained why Lisa had chosen him of all people. And yet, she had. She had thrown away everything for this. He blinked up at me, Adam's apple bobbing as he fumbled to step back. His name tag, Kevin, gleamed under the fluorescent lights, and for a brief second, I wanted to rip it off his chest just to erase the existence of him from this moment. Lisa must have sensed where my attention had shifted, because suddenly she was stepping between us, one hand lightly touching my arm. A mistake. Jack, please. I wrenched my arm away, so fast she flinched. Don't. I snapped, my voice sharp, final. Don't you touch me. She sucked in a breath, blinking rapidly, her hands twisting together. I could see her gears turning, working double time to figure out how to spin this in her favor. It's not what you think, she rushed out, her voice shaking just slightly. I just come here sometimes to talk. That's all. It's harmless, I swear. Harmless. I let out a humorless laugh, dragging a hand down my face. So now it's just talking? That's the story you're going with. I pointed toward Kevin, whose face had turned an impressive shade of pale. Because from where I was standing, it looked a hell of a lot more than just talking. Lisa's mouth opened, then closed. Cornered. She knew it. I knew it. The only one who hadn't said a damn word yet was him. I turned my glare back to Kevin, taking a slow step forward. He stiffened, shifting on his feet like a deer about to bolt. You got something to say, kid? I asked, voice dangerously low. Kevin swallowed hard. I didn't know she was married, he muttered, hands raised slightly, like that might somehow soften the blow. My vision went red. He didn't know she was married? Was that supposed to make it better? Lisa whipped her head toward him, her expression shifting for the first time into something closer to rage. Kevin, she hissed under her breath, her tone laced with panic. That was all I needed to hear. Because she knew she had never mentioned me to him. Had never let the words my husband slip past her lips while she was pressed up against him in this dingy little store. She wanted this fantasy, a life where I didn't exist, where she could step out of our home every night and play pretend with some scrawny cashier like she was a damn high school girl sneaking out to meet her first boyfriend. I exhaled slowly, rolling my shoulders back. You know what, Lisa? I said, my voice calm again. Too calm. She looked at me, hopeful, like maybe she still had a chance to spin this. Go ahead. Buy your damn chocolate bar. She blinked. What? I nodded toward the register, where the lone candy bar still sat between us. Go on. Pay for it. That is what you came here for, right? She hesitated, glancing between me and Kevin. Slowly, she reached for her wallet, fumbling slightly as she pulled out a few crumpled bills. Kevin took them without a word, avoiding my gaze as he punched in the price, his hands shaking slightly. The register dinged. Lisa grabbed the chocolate bar, clutching it like it was some kind of damn lifeline. And then I stepped in close, my voice low enough that only she could hear. Enjoy it. I murmured, my breath warm against her ear. She shivered. Then, without another word, I turned around and walked out. I didn't need to hear her excuses. I didn't need to see the regret settle on her face. Because this wasn't over. Not by a damn long shot. I stepped out of that store and into the night air, but the fire inside me didn't cool. If anything, it burned hotter. The lot was nearly empty, just my truck and a couple of beat-up sedans belonging to the night crew. The streetlights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the pavement. I took a deep breath, dragging the cool air into my lungs, but it did nothing to settle the rage clawing at my insides. Behind me, the automatic doors slid open with a quiet hiss. I didn't turn around. I heard her steps, hesitant, almost reluctant, before she spoke. "Jack." Her voice was softer now, less panicked, more controlled. The voice of a woman who thought maybe, just maybe, she could still salvage this. I kept walking. She jogged to catch up, her boots clicking against the pavement. "Jack, wait." I didn't. "Please." She tried again, her tone more urgent. "Can we just talk?" I stopped. Not because I wanted to hear whatever bullshit she was about to spill, but because I wanted to see her. Wanted to look her in the eyes one last time before I ripped her world apart the way she tried to rip apart mine. Slowly I turned. Lisa stood a few feet away, the stupid chocolate bar still clutched in her hand. Her coat was slightly open, revealing the fitted sweater she'd worn tonight, nicer than what she usually threw on for grocery runs. Her hair was pushed back, a little messy, like maybe Kevin's hands had been in it earlier. That thought made my fingers curl into fists again. She took a careful step forward. "Jack, don't." The word came out sharp, slicing through the air between us. Her lips pressed together, but she didn't back down. "I know how this looks. You don't know shit, Lisa." She flinched at the venom in my voice. "Good." I exhaled slowly, my breath coming out in a white puff in the cold night air. "How long?" I asked, my tone flat. She swallowed. "Jack, I swear it's not." "How long?" She hesitated, just for a second, and that hesitation told me everything. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Jesus Christ. It wasn't like that," she rushed out. "I mean, yes, okay, we kissed, but it's not." I took a step forward, and she immediately stopped talking. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "You really think I give a damn if it was just a kiss? You think I give a damn about whatever pathetic excuse you're about to throw at me?" She bit her lip. "I didn't mean..." "No," I cut her off. "You meant every single choice you made." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I took a deep breath, willing myself not to explode. "Not yet. Tell me the truth, Lisa," I said, my voice low. "How long has this been going on?" She stared at me for a moment, then looked down at the ground, shifting on her feet like a nervous kid caught doing something they shouldn't. "A few weeks." Liar. I could see it in the way she said it, the way she avoided my eyes, the way she waited to see if I'd believe it. I had been married to this woman for years. I knew when she was lying, but I let her have that moment, let her think she'd gotten away with shaving off the real number. Because in the end, it didn't matter whether it was a few weeks or a few months. What mattered was that she did it, that she chose this, that she stood in our house, smiled at me, kissed me, and then walked out the door to be with someone else. I let the silence stretch between us until it became unbearable. Lisa shifted, her arms crossing over her chest, her fingers gripping her sleeves. "Jack, I never meant to hurt you." A humorless chuckle escaped me. "You never meant to get caught." Her head snapped up, eyes wide. "That's not fair." I raised an eyebrow. "Fair?" The way she winced when I said it made something dark settle in my chest. "Tell me, Lisa," I continued, stepping closer, watching as she instinctively stepped back. "Was it fair when you snuck off every night, letting me think you were just grabbing a damn candy bar?" She swallowed, but I didn't stop. "Was it fair when you sat on our couch, eating your chocolate like everything was fine, while you were still tasting him?" Her face twisted in something close to guilt. Good. She deserved to feel that. I leaned in, lowering my voice to something sharp and cruel. "Was it fair when I kissed you goodnight, not knowing I was kissing someone else's leftovers?" She gasped, her face crumbling. "Jack!" But I was already turning away, because I was done. Done with her lies. Done with this conversation. Lisa wasn't the kind of woman you yelled at. She wasn't the kind of woman who broke down at screaming or big, dramatic fights. No, she was the kind of woman who got shaken when things got quiet, when the anger turned cold. And right now, I was ice. I walked to my truck, yanked the door open, and climbed inside. Lisa hesitated, standing there in the dim parking lot, clutching her stupid chocolate bar like it was going to save her. "Where are you going?" she called. I looked at her through the windshield. "Home, but not our home. Not anymore." I started the engine, and the headlights washed over her, illuminating every bit of guilt, every bit of regret. I wanted to believe she was sorry. But if she were really sorry, she never would have done it in the first place. I pulled out of the lot, leaving her standing there, watching as I drove away, watching as I left her behind. The road stretched ahead of me, dark and empty, just the way I felt inside. Streetlights flickered past in a steady rhythm, casting long shadows across the pavement. The truck's engine rumbled beneath me, a steady, familiar sound, but everything else in my world had turned foreign. I gripped the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored, my knuckles stiff, my fingers curled tight. Lisa's voice still rang in my ears. "Jack, wait. It's not what you think. I never meant to hurt you." Lies. Lies wrapped in excuses, dipped in desperation, all tied up in a neat little bow of self-preservation. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she'd gotten caught. And that was what burned the most. Not the fact that she betrayed me. Not even the fact that she'd done it so carelessly, sneaking off every damn night like I was too stupid to put the pieces together. No. What really twisted the knife was how little she must have respected me to think she could do all of that and still come home, still look me in the eye, still act like I was the fool in this relationship. Like she had me so well trained that I'd never notice. The thought made my grip tighten until the leather steering wheel groaned under the pressure. I needed to calm down. I needed to think. But how the hell was I supposed to think when every time I closed my eyes, I saw her pressed up against that scrawny bastard, their lips meeting in some cheap, pathetic excuse for a love affair? I inhaled through my nose, exhaled through my mouth, tried to push the image away. But it didn't work. It was branded onto my brain, seared into my memory like a wound that wouldn't close. And then, before I knew it, I was home. Or at least, what used to be home. I pulled into the driveway, but for the first time in my life, I hesitated before turning off the engine. It was strange. I had lived in this house for years, knew every creaky floorboard, every chipped tile, every spot on the walls where Lisa had insisted on hanging those damn framed quotes about love and laughter and forever. And now, all of it felt like a joke. The porch light was still on, casting a soft glow over the front yard, welcoming me home like nothing had changed. Like my entire world hadn't just been flipped upside down. Like I wasn't walking into a place that had been turned into a lie. I killed the engine, climbed out, and slammed the truck door harder than I needed to. My boots crunched against the gravel as I stalked toward the front steps, heart pounding, mind spinning. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made you notice things you normally wouldn't. The faint tick of the wall clock. The hum of the refrigerator. The way the air felt different, heavier, like it was pressing down on me from all sides. I kicked off my boots in the entryway, but I didn't bother turning on the lights. Didn't need to. I knew this place like the back of my hand. But knowing it and feeling at home in it were two different things. I walked through the living room, past the couch where Lisa and I had spent countless nights watching movies, past the coffee table still cluttered with magazines and her half-finished puzzle. It was strange how normal everything looked, as if my entire marriage hadn't just imploded. My gaze landed on the small side table next to the couch. Lisa's phone charger was still plugged in. Her book, one of those cheesy romance novels she always insisted were guilty pleasures, was sitting there, marked with a dog-eared page. And right next to it, a half-eaten chocolate bar. I stared at it. Something about seeing it there, sitting so casually in the middle of our home, as if it was just another snack, made something in my chest snap. That stupid chocolate bar had been her excuse, the thing she used to cover her tracks. And now it was just sitting here, mocking me. I grabbed it, turned it over in my hand. The wrapper crinkled under my grip. Then, without thinking, I threw it as hard as I could against the wall. It hit with a dull thud, bounced off, and landed on the floor near the bookshelf. The wrapper split open, spilling pieces of chocolate onto the carpet. It was so small, so insignificant, but somehow it felt like the most insulting thing in the world. I stood there, breathing heavily, staring down at the mess I had just made. And then my eyes drifted to our wedding photo. It sat on the shelf, framed in polished silver, right where it had always been. Lisa and I smiling. Happy. Oblivious. I stepped closer, picking it up, running my fingers over the glass. We had been so young when this was taken. So damn sure that we had everything figured out. I wondered if Lisa had looked at this picture before sneaking off to see him. If she had ever felt a second of guilt before walking out that door, knowing she was lying to my face. My fingers tightened around the frame. And then, before I could stop myself, I hurled it across the room. The glass shattered on impact, splintering into 1,000 tiny pieces across the hardwood floor. The sound echoed in the empty house. For a long moment, I just stood there, chest rising and falling, hands shaking. And that was when it really hit me. Lisa wasn't just cheating on me. She had already left me. Maybe not physically, not yet, but emotionally, mentally. She had checked out long before tonight. And now, I had a decision to make. I could wait for her to come home. Wait for her to walk through that door with her pathetic little excuses, her crocodile tears, her desperate attempts to convince me that this was all just some meaningless mistake. Or I could make the choice for her. Because one thing was for damn sure, I wasn't going to be the fool she came home to anymore. I turned away from the broken frame, my mind already set. By the time Lisa got back, I wouldn't be here. And when she realized what that meant, it would already be too late. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by pieces of my past. The broken glass from our wedding photo glinted in the dim light. The half-eaten chocolate bar lay on the floor, its wrapper torn open, a pathetic reminder of the lie I had been living in. The silence in the house was suffocating, pressing against my chest like a weight I couldn't shake off. Lisa had built this place with me. Every piece of furniture, every framed picture, every damn decoration. She had chosen them. We had stood in furniture stores together, arguing over which couch to buy, which shade of paint would look best in the kitchen. We had laughed over wine when she tried to assemble a bookshelf and got the instructions all wrong. This house was supposed to be ours, but now it felt like a museum of something that had already died. I exhaled, long and slow, and ran a hand through my hair. My body still hummed with anger, but beneath that was something else, something heavier. Clarity. Lisa was gone. She hadn't packed a bag or walked out the door yet, but she had left me long before I caught her with that scrawny cashier. And now I had to decide what came next. Waiting for her to come home felt like a waste. I wasn't going to sit on the couch like some pathetic, desperate husband, listening to her trip over her words as she tried to feed me lies I wasn't going to believe. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a fight, of crying, of begging. She made her choice. Now I was making mine. I turned on my heel and headed for the bedroom. The air was thick, suffocating as I stepped inside. The scent of her perfume still lingered, clinging to the sheets, the pillows, the closet full of clothes she had spent years curating. I walked to the dresser, grabbed a duffel bag, and started throwing clothes. Jeans, shirts, socks. Enough to last me a few weeks. Because I wasn't coming back. Not for a long time. Maybe ever. The thought should have hurt, should have made my chest ache with grief. But all I felt was relief. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and scrolled through my contacts. There was only one person I wanted to call right now. Someone who would understand. I hit dial. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Jack, it's late, man. Everything okay? It was my brother, David. I let out a slow breath. No, not really. A pause. Then his voice sharpened. What happened? I didn't even know how to say it. The words felt too small for what I had just lived through. Lisa, I finally muttered. She's been sneaking around. Caught her kissing some guy at the grocery store tonight. Silence. Then, low and cold. Tell me you're not still in that house. I exhaled. Packing a bag now. Good, David said immediately. You're coming here. I don't give a damn what time it is. You're not spending another night in that place. I rubbed at my jaw, nodding even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I muttered. I think you're right. Of course I'm right. His voice was steady, grounding. Where are you? You want me to come get you? Nah, I'll drive. You sure? Yeah. All right. He let out a breath. You want me to beat this guy's ass? That made me almost laugh. Maybe, I muttered. But right now, I just need to get out of here. Then get your ass over here. I'll be waiting. I hung up. David had always been the type to cut through the noise, to see things for exactly what they were. He wouldn't sit around analyzing Lisa's excuses, trying to pick apart what went wrong. He would tell me the truth, the same truth I already knew. This marriage was done, and now I had to act like it. I finished stuffing my bag, grabbed my keys, and slung the strap over my shoulder. Then I turned and took one last look at the bedroom. The bed we had shared. The closet filled with clothes that smelled like her. The framed pictures on the wall that used to mean something. Not anymore. I flipped off the light and walked out, leaving without goodbye. The house was silent as I made my way back to the front door. Lisa still wasn't home. I could picture her back in that parking lot, standing in the glow of the streetlights, staring after my truck like she hadn't realized until that exact moment what she had lost. But she had lost me long before tonight. She just didn't know it. I grabbed a piece of paper from the counter, pulled a pen from a drawer, and scrawled a note. Lisa, you made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I won't be here when you get back. Don't call. Don't text. We're done. I didn't sign it. I folded the paper in half and left it on the kitchen table. Then, without another second of hesitation, I walked out the door, locking it behind me. I tossed my duffel bag into the truck, climbed in, and started the engine. The rumble filled the silence, grounding me. And as I pulled out of the driveway, leaving behind everything, I realized something. I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel lost. I felt free. Lisa could keep her chocolate bars. She could keep her excuses. She could keep her pathetic little affair with a guy who scanned groceries for a living. Because I was never looking back. The road stretched ahead of me, dark and quiet. The only sound the low hum of my truck's engine as I sped away from the house that no longer felt like home. The streetlights flickered past in a steady rhythm, casting fleeting patches of light across the dashboard. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles stiff, mind racing. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt free. Lisa was behind me. The lies, the betrayal, the nights she slipped away under the excuse of a chocolate bar. I should have been angry. Maybe I still was. But as the city lights faded into the distance and the road stretched into open highway, something else settled into my chest. Something I hadn't expected. Relief. I didn't have to go home and pretend anymore. Didn't have to look at Lisa and wonder what she was hiding behind her half-smiles and guilty eyes. Didn't have to lie to myself. Didn't have to question everything. She had made her choice, and I had finally made mine. The highway was nearly empty, nothing but me and the open road. My fingers itched to turn on the radio, to fill the silence with something, anything, but I didn't, because maybe for once the silence was good. Maybe it was exactly what I needed. David's place. By the time I pulled into David's driveway, the clock on my dash read 2:17 a.m. His house was dark, but before I could even turn off the engine, the porch light flickered on. The front door opened, and there he was, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching as I climbed out of the truck and slung my bag over my shoulder. David had always been the guy who didn't need words to get his point across. One look at me, at the set of my shoulders, at the exhaustion written all over my face, and he understood. About time, he muttered, stepping aside to let me in. I walked past him without a word. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old wood, like it always had. The furniture was simple, the walls lined with framed photos and shelves full of junk he had collected over the years. It wasn't fancy, but it felt real, like a place built on something solid. Not like the house I had just left behind. David shut the door behind me and locked it. Kitchen, he said, jerking his head toward the back of the house. I followed, too tired to argue. The kitchen lights buzzed overhead as I dropped my bag onto the floor. David grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, popped the caps off, and handed me one. I took it without a word, sinking into a chair at the table. For a while, we just sat there. No talking, no prying, just 2 brothers drinking in silence. After a few minutes, David finally leaned back in his chair, staring at me. So he said, "You gonna tell me what happened?" I exhaled through my nose, running a hand through my hair. "You already know what happened." "Yeah," he admitted, "but I want to hear you say it." I took a slow sip of beer, letting the bitter taste settle on my tongue. Then I set the bottle down, staring at the label as I spoke. "Lisa's been sneaking out every night," I said, my voice low. "Said she was craving chocolate." David raised an eyebrow. I huffed out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, turns out she was craving something else." He didn't say anything, just waited. "I followed her tonight," I continued. "Watched her walk into that little grocery store on the corner. She wasn't there for candy." I clenched my jaw. She was there for him. David set his bottle down with a little more force than necessary. "Some scrawny cashier," I muttered. "Saw them with my own damn eyes. She was standing there, kissing him like I didn't exist." David's expression darkened, and for a moment, I could see it, the way his fingers curled slightly against the table, the way his jaw clenched just enough to show how much he wanted to hit something. But he didn't. He just exhaled, shaking his head. "Jesus Christ, Jack." "Yeah." Silence. Then, after a long moment, "What did you do?" I glanced up at him. "Left." David blinked. "That's it. What the hell else was I supposed to do?" "Put his face through the counter, for starters." I let out a dry chuckle. "Trust me, I thought about it." David leaned back, crossing his arms. "So what now?" I ran a hand over my face, exhaustion creeping in. "Now? I don't know, but I'm not going back there." David studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Good. Morning comes too soon." I didn't sleep much that night. I crashed on David's couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the old clock ticking in the corner. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Not the Lisa I knew, the Lisa I had seen tonight. The woman who had looked at another man the way she used to look at me. The woman who had kissed him like she didn't have a husband waiting at home. By the time the sun started creeping through the blinds, I gave up. I sat up, ran a hand over my face, and let out a long breath. My body ached, my chest felt hollow, but I had made my choice. I wasn't going back. Lisa would come home to an empty house. She would see the note, maybe cry, maybe panic, maybe call me 100 times. But I wouldn't answer, because I was done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. A future without her. By the time David walked into the kitchen, I was already sitting at the table with a fresh cup of coffee. He poured himself one, took a sip, then leaned against the counter. "You sleep?" I snorted. "Not much." Figured. A beat of silence. Then, "What's next for you, Jack?" I stared into my coffee, watching the steam curl into the air. I could do anything, go anywhere. For years, I had built my life around us. Around her. Now I was free, and maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. I exhaled. "I guess I'll find out." David smirked. "Damn right you will." And as I sat there, the weight of the past slowly slipping from my shoulders, I realized something. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of something better, of something that didn't include her. And that was the best damn feeling in the world.